Hey everybody, welcome. This is Anna from Rock Dance Theater back again. It is June and man, we are here still, that's right, in a kind of home room, studio recording session, whatever, rehearsal space, you name it. Still our living rooms and I cannot actually believe it's June. But yes, festival season has started outside my window. It's sunny and beautiful over here. But hey, I'm super excited to be with you guys here again. And of course, as these exciting episodes develop and each of them gets their own chapters, this one is pretty rock and roll as it can get because it's called the Detroit Rock Chapter. And my special guest that is going to join me just in a couple of minutes or seconds, actually. I tend to do these intros quite short, not talking too much, which as you know, guys, as you were watching the last episodes, oh, hi, Mike. Some regulars are already kicking in, so that's always cool. Thank you so much, guys, for the support. And if you are just literally tuning in with us over here on the Rock Dance Theater live stream meetings, please click subscribe, hit the notification button to never miss another post. And yeah, just do the honor so that I don't have to freaking repeat it all over again. Thank you so much. You are also at the same time contributing to me not losing my voice as I do these things because, hey, shows have been suspended indefinitely, but thanks to that, we get an opportunity to do all of these cool meetings, to have awesome guests, awesome friends, and hell, talk about everything that's good, right? To inspire you guys and hopefully to make your home lockdowns as well as tolerable as possible until we can get back into action, shall we? So yeah, today, actually, my special guest that I see so pumped up and ready in the green room already, we have Scotty Hagen with me today. And I gotta say that the guy literally owns rock and roll because he's the boss of, and now I'm brain farting, thank you so much, Detroit, not RockCITY Music Company, as well as Bellyache Records. And some people also know him as Bellyache, but that's a whole nother story that we may or may not crack open for you guys because, yeah, it's a cute story. And it's also an artistic pseudo, so I think that's going to be one of the conversation in today's story. So without further ado, guys, I would love to invite over to the show Scotty Hagen himself.
Hey. I brought a few friends with me.
Yeah, I thought so. You know what? I didn't text you what you should wear or anything like that because as people know, this show is live. It's unscripted. Of course, there's always a theme and an idea, but we are that good that we don't have to plan much. Everything just comes out fabulous as it is. So thank you for not coming alone this time.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. What's happening over in Detroit right now? Partying on Kids' Day kind of thing?
Yeah, it's right now it's I don't even know what time it is. Oh, it's 1 o'clock, right?
it's 1 on the 1st, so the timing has aligned perfectly today.
Yeah,
as well.
1-1. Yeah, it's a very beautiful day out. It's sunny. I'm
so
here.
What?
Yeah, I'm not going to complain. I've not seen the sun go down yet today, so I'm it's nice.
It's still ahead.
Yeah,
sweet.
It's still early though.
Yeah, it's quite relatively early here as well, like within the last month, kind of for us creatives, we have became vampires even more so than we are. Like no one gives a shit about time anymore. There's no places to go really. We don't have to be on a schedule. And
Right.
This pretty much is exactly one of the defining moments. If I don't know when my live stream is happening, like the schedule is all, upside down.
Yeah.
And yeah, you stay up late, you binge on, I don't know, rock documentaries or metal documentaries. I don't know about how you spend your nights. Have you binge watched like Netflix, like almost everybody except for me? Because I literally have not.
At the beginning, like back in March, I watched a lot of music docs that I've been wanting to see for a long time and caught up on a few things, started watching, a lot more movies. But then I started to get to the point where, I don't want to come out of this with a quarantine belly or anything like that. I stay fairly healthy. So I started getting back up and doing, work around the house. And then during the course of it, like at RockCITY Music Company, the store that I'm the operations manager at, we've been doing really great with online sales. So it was kind of like, oh, we got a little bit of work to do. So
that's cool.
So it's been good, getting up and getting out. I don't know at what point in time I'll ever wear real pants again. If denim will ever touch my skin, because the Adidas warm-up suit has become like, I think part of my body.
The essential. You know what?
Yeah,
it's funny that you actually talk about fashion and gear. I gotta say, I have tons of clothes, not only my stage clothes, my costumes, my outfits, but it's just like all of that. I just look at it because it's over at my house where I'm staying at, like also on home mandatory lockdown. And I just kind of gasp and I figure, you know what? I am so not freaking wearing this season, am I? It's just one of the weirdest things. And I do try to dress up for all of these live streams. Like, this is the one of my favorite shirts that I'm wearing, let's say today. And this is exactly what I try to do. I try to mix things up. I try to record these, videos, produce content for the Rock Dance Theater channel, all of that stuff so that it does not collect dust. I swear to God.
Right. I still managed to have a lot of laundry to go through because there was a point in time I could have easily just been like rocking the same clothes or I should say same shirts. I've only got a couple of different pairs of warm-up pants, but I was like, I'm always like, making sure I have a clean T-shirt on. And in fact, I'm wearing a brand new shirt right now. It's the first time.
I like what you're wearing. Very Friday 13th, Alice Cooper, shock rock kind of thing.
Totally.
You know what?
Okay,
since you already mentioned that visually, and that's a super cool visual representation, it's exactly one of these things why Detroit is one of these places on the world map, which defines rock, right? Like Alice Cooper that we all know. The grandfather of shock rock comes exactly from there. So would you say you're almost a relative of Alice himself since you come from there too?
I originally grew up in a town about 2 hours north of Detroit called Essexville. And I left there a number of years ago. But I had spent a lot of time coming down to Detroit came to a lot of shows.
You took a very slow train, you mean? All the way down.
And then when I eventually made it, when I eventually landed here and dropped planted my roots here, that's where everything started happening with like band stuff and record label stuff. I'd been working doing music stores, working in record stores for a long time. That was that was part of everything, but it wasn't until I got here that I really got like plugged in.
Speaking of playing music, having bands and everything, like I really loved the image that you sent me for our promo of this episode, which is a super cool shot of you holding the Gibson or Epiphone Firebird bass. I'm not sure because
it's a Thunderbird.
The headstock was actually kind of Thunderbird. Yeah, but Gibson or Epiphone?
It's an Epiphone Thunderbird. It's a Classic 4. It was a reissue that came out, I believe, in 2013. And I play bass. I've been in a band for the better part of, since 2000, late 2002, called the Grand Nationals. I formed the band originally with my friend Stevie when he had some demos that he was working on. And then he introduced me to our friend Tony, who became our guitar player, and our friend Sarah, who became our drummer. And that's when we became the band. It went from us doing Stevie's demos to turning into this band. And I was playing guitar with him originally. And, I'm a guitar player, I do a lot of rhythm stuff, but I'm not like a great lead player. So when we brought Tony in, they're like, would you want to switch to bass since we didn't really find anyone for bass? I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And Stevie was a bass player. So I started playing he had a Thunderbird at the time, and I was playing like his rig, and then eventually got my own stuff. And that's, I switched from guitar to bass basically in 2003. And
it's funny because for me, it was exactly in the same order. I mean, me, being a stage performer and starting off playing music or like any kind of instrument quite late in my life, because I was like 29 when I picked it up, and some force came upon me and figured, you will rock right now, and I did not learn anything as a kid. My passion was very early on killed by that. I think I told that story once, but funny, originally I grabbed a guitar, and then within a couple of years, I realized, you know what? I'm good at rhythm guitar, but this whole soloing thing it's not for me. It stresses me out. It's kind of like, I don't need to be a show off. Like I can be upside down, standing on my head and leaning on a guitar neck and doing all weird choreography with it. But a bass sounded like a natural transition for me. And like why I'm catching onto your photo actually with that cool bass that you're holding ever so professionally is because it's one of these new latest talents in quarantine, right? Like it's just, pick up a hobby and just occupy your mind with the positive things. And I grabbed the bass. So there you go.
No, that's
I dig that. I dig that. If you sent me one with a guitar, I would probably like, seen them all.
Anyone can pose with a guitar or something.
Exactly.
But it was the exact same thing for me where I felt like, I play rhythm, well enough. but I realized the bass turned out to be the better instrument for me, because in the music that we wrote in the Grand Nationals, it didn't require a lot of intricate bass playing, and I'm not just standing there plucking being lazy either, because that band is high energy. It always was from day one, even to when we did a reunion show last year. And I didn't know, if the energy would still be there, and it totally was, because the songs are there. And it's like, you're going to play those songs. It was always, we always wanted to blow the roof off with every song. That we never give anyone a breath. Give them 40, 45 minutes, and don't let anyone rest. That's exactly what you want to do.
Before I actually ask you which gear you use, like all of that, technical side that we're always excited about. I know that you play in a band, you own the record store, you sell equipment, you sell guitars, pedal effects, you organize clinics, events, all kinds of stuff.
I'm the operations manager for the store. I don't own it. My friend Nick Morocco owns the shop.
Okay. And so we got the facts straight. Sorry.
Right. But I definitely, but the record label is all me.
We'll get to the record label. This I absolutely know and dig. But for our viewers, can you go a little bit back in history, like where did the playing part, the practical side of music, come up in your life? Because of course, like, music is around all of us, like, since always, like ever since you're born. Kind of either parents play something on the radio, and at first TV comes on, and all of a sudden you see a music video. Oh my God, it changes your life. Like, tell our viewers a little bit that don't know that side of the story to you, like what actually happened that triggered all that.
Well, music has always been there in my house, with my family. My dad always had top of the line stereo equipment at home, like turntables and speakers. He used to build speaker cabinets for people. For years, we were kids.
That's the way to do it, right?
Yeah.
Good audio.
Yeah. And my dad has always been the kind of guy that he can do anything. If there's something, he can figure it out. And he was building speaker cabinets for people many years ago. And I remember, like, the UPS man would come and always drop off like the speakers that went into the cabinets. And we didn't even know the guy was called the UPS guy. We just called him the speaker man, because we were kids. And so the speaker man's here. But my dad,
speaker man is here.
Yeah. So,
that's funny.
So he was always doing that, but he always had great equipment. So they always had a lot of records. And my parents always liked, groups, artists like Fleetwood Mac, the real 70s, middle of the road, easy listening, Fleetwood Mac, like Linda Ronstadt, people like that. So there was always music on. And I remember the transition of being a kid and loving, like, Star Wars music, and then hearing, like, I remember, like, the Blues Brothers movie, and that's
do they call it Star Wars music? I think that's like a soundtrack or a theme, right?
It's the music from the film, which I'm a big fan of. I'm a huge fan of film scores and soundtracks,
and collecting
that stuff.
Well, I mean, everyone knows it.
They tell the story of a movie without words, And but I remember when I had first seen the Blues Brothers when I was a kid, and it's like, that's what I want to do. I want to wear a black suit and a tie and shades, but that was like the first, like, music that I really started to like. And as I really started getting into more music, and I was really into a lot of like pop rock music. It was a number of years before I got in a guitar. And I remember
I just literally wanted to ask, like, was the Blues Brothers something that you could immediately translate to actually picking up something and learning guitar, or there was not available?
I didn't, definitely not an instrument at that time. It was definitely music that I loved, though. And then I remember going to one of these retail stores with my dad and finding all of the Blues Brothers albums. They actually had records outside of the soundtrack, and we found them really cheap, and they were brand new. They used to have these bins that, called cutout bins, where records that didn't sell well, they would send them back to the cutout bin, and they would put a little saw mark in it and then send them back to stores at a discounted price.
And they would be like, what, $5?
Yeah. $2.95, $3.95.
Oh, even. Well, that's how I shop for records. Like, I'm rebuilding my vinyl collection right now, and I don't pay more than €5, $5, $10, 10 Swedish crowns, depends.
Sure. And you can find, back then you could find a lot of stuff really cheap that way. So that was like the music that I was listening to until I really got into like listening to rock music. And when I discovered like hard rock and heavy metal, that became more of what
whole other story.
That became my world. And around the time that I got my first guitar, I bought a cheap guitar off of a friend of mine, and it was a knockoff of a Gibson SG. And
Nice. I like SGs. Some people really criticize it because it's a full body. It's kind of a piece of wood, but fuck, it's a cool guitar. I always liked it.
It's a great guitar.
If Angus Young could freaking play it, then it's a cool guitar. Come on.
Totally. And I don't even. I can barely remember the original color. I want to say it was kind of like a brown wood grain, but I immediately, like, after I got that guitar from him, my dad also was, has been for years very good at. He restores muscle cars and like old hot rod type stuff, and he's an excellent painter. So I said, I want to paint this guitar white because I want it to look like the Gibson SG that Glenn Buxton was playing on the back cover of Alice Cooper's Love It to Death record. So we painted that guitar, and I remember it had this real crappy Bigsby, trem system on it, and it was the worst spring system ever. And this guitar played
Doesn't
terrible.
matter.
Yeah, it played terrible, and I wish I still had it because we eventually painted it black, so it looked like Michael Bruce's SG from the back of Love It to Death. But that guitar was like my first guitar, and then I moved on to I got into collecting like Dan Electro guitars and a few other things like that. But once I moved on to bass, that became like that became the thing. I did have like a Charvel guitar in there at some point too. And
here's the thing. This you're gonna actually like very, very early on when I founded Rock Dance Theater first, like it was like 2016 or something.
Yeah. Me
working with Victor, my first guitar player, that was actually a luthier, actually like completely freelance. But you would give pieces of gear, bridges, pickups, screws, and the guy would freaking take a cutlery box that he just found literally somewhere, and he would do like a freaking Rezo cigar box, whatever. He was a freaking genius. So one project that we actually wanted to do, and on Edge, one of our first projects, we had an Epiphone Gibson Junior with P90 pickups, which is actually my favorite pickup type.
Very cool.
And we had an SG bass. Fuck, it was amazing. We just had the wood, no gear in. But what we did a Frankenstein, and we sliced off both of the bodies. We glued together that as a double neck, and we put in all of the weirdest shit that should not freaking play, but it was awesome, man. It was the tone was so heavy. Of course it did. Like he put it together, he wired everything. Yeah, and like literally, we had this like kind of post-apocalyptic kind of thing. It was a monster, And we actually never made it to the premiere, and it was, like something really bad happened to the guitar. That's a whole nother story. A party came down in his apartment, and like someone fell on it and fucking, it caved in. Yeah. And we recorded some rehearsals with it, and actually the scenes where, like sometimes when operas finish up with the last scene, you have the final singer. With the backlight, smoke and everything, is ginormous. That's exactly the end scene that we wanted to do, play unisono, like both of us. Yeah. So we have that kind of from rehearsal, and we did not fucking do it on stage. And I was just like, oh my God, please kill me now. So yeah, that was the fun story of it, and it had a very short lifespan. But I'll send you the photo. Totally, I have it somewhere. You got to check it out.
Like. Yeah, that sounds cool.
So yeah, but like speaking of gear and repairs and stuff, it's fascinating. I mean, I'm a chick, yet I find that totally fascinating, and I always wish that I have kind of more time outside of my project being on stage. Well, not now, obviously, but this is our stage today. But one of these things that is super cool to kind of break apart and put them back together. It's like a small, well, I call it small laboratory Frankenstein kind of feel, right? When you just see, oh, this produces sound. Oh, this is a coil, and this makes it grounded or whatever. It's just, I find that super cool, actually, to look behind the music, right? What actually produces the amazing sound and tones or whatever coming out of the instruments or records that, well, you're the boss of. Speaking of, do you want to talk a little bit, Scotty, for our viewers and me? Well, I love to hear stories, right? And talk stories too. That's why I think this would be a totally awesome idea to kind of have both of us just talk and yap away old rock. Tell us a little bit about Bellyache Records that, of course, you are the main owner of.
Yeah, the Bellyache Records, when it originally started, it was born out of another business that I had with my friend Michelle. And it was called the Bellyache Candy Shop. There was a point.
I remember that. Yeah. I think you told me the story somewhere along the lines. Okay.
Yeah, we there was a point in time. I remember I got an email that was like, "Hey, I was working at this record store, and she'd asked, do you sell candy?"
Let me ask, no more candy for you.
No, not at all. And I remember she'd asked me like, do you sell candy at your store? And I go, no, why? And she goes, well, because if you did, we could go to this. And she sent me this link to this thing called the All Candy Expo, and it was in Chicago. And I'm looking at this thing, and it's just massive. I go, we have no business at this thing, but it looked amazing because it was like every candy manufacturer on the planet had like it was
probably Nam, right? Or Music Master for Candy.
It was the candy of Nam.
Yeah,
the Nam of candy. Yeah,
the Nam of candy.
The Nam of candy, and
or
that
Music Master in Europe.
And it was crazy. So we were hanging out and we started talking more about it. I said, well, maybe we should form something, and just to go to this thing. But as we kept talking more about it, it became more of a reality. We're like, why don't we try to open a cool, weird candy store? And then as we kept going on about these ideas, we're like, well, we got to come up with a name. And Michelle was the one that actually, I remember the night we were brainstorming, and I'm shocked I remember it because it was after dinner and after, a few adult beverages. I remember we were trying to come up with a name, and I'm always lean towards gross things. I like horror movies.
Have you seen your masks in your living room, Scotty? Like, seriously. I wonder why.
I'm confused. Yeah, so we were coming up with names, and she was came with Bellyache, and I'm like, I love it. And then so it became the Bellyache Candy Shop, and we started working towards it.
Bellyache, right?
Absolutely.
That's logical.
Absolutely. So and at that time, since I was working at a record store and she was working as a producer for a concert promoter, which became like Live Nation in Detroit, excuse me, she, we pulled together our resources. We're like, well, we need to do something to start creating, funding for our plan. So we came up with doing this compilation, and the very first record that was released, or I should say CD on Bellyache Records, was The Sweet Sounds of Detroit, Volume 1. And what we did was, since we knew all these people that played in bands, we had them do write songs about candy. Of course, nothing's really ever about candy. It's all total sexual innuendo. And so, but there's some songs, that, maybe, someone, they had the right idea. But we came up with this comp, and all the bands on here were fairly well known. We're gigging regularly, and it did really well. We put on this big release show. The venue we had like a 500 capacity, and it was near capacity, and there was tickets sold on Ticketmaster for it, and that kind of set the bar for what we were doing. And
awesome.
Which
year around was that, Scotty? Was it
2006?
2000s. Okay.
Yep, it was 2006, and that was when. So at that point, we thought, well, we'll just continue on with doing compilations and we had an online store that we sold a lot of weird off-brand, like weird types of candy, and that was what we were going to do. But what was the
weirdest shaped candy you would say, or taste? Because if anyone knows, guys, Swedish candy, that's like the freaking weirdest. Not only for the shape, color, and taste, you have like sour connected to sweet. The black ones are the worst, guys. If anyone ever check them out, please check them out. You will be freaking surprised what you're having in your mouth there.
The weirdest thing, I saw a lot of weird stuff, but one of my favorite things that we ever had in stock was a big plastic tooth.
Hello, Sweden.
There was this big plastic tooth, and it was called Toothache. And when you took off the lid, which was the top of the tooth, one side of it was all these little white candy teeth, and the other side was this red goo that looked like blood. And you had to take out the tooth, and you had to dip it into the blood, and
almost the bone marrow kind of thing.
Exactly. And it was like a jelly.
I've had a root canal once in my life, so I know exactly what that is, and how it tastes with medicine.
I got to get one on Friday, so I'm looking forward to it all over again.
But I
know. We sold all this candy stuff, but in the meantime, with the records, the CD did really well, and then the Grand Nationals were getting ready to release this album, Brass Knuckle Heartbreak. So we did a CD single, and then we did the CD, Brass Knuckle Heartbreak. And we thought, well, let's just put it on Bellyache Records, and we kept going from there. And then we thought, well, we'll just keep doing compilations, and then we started getting bands coming to us like, hey, we really like the aesthetic of what you're doing. Can we put out our CD or our record?
We sign up?
Yeah, exactly. And then we were like, well, after our fourth release, we put out this is the Grand Nationals album. I don't think there's any available on Bellyache Records right now. I've just found a small box of them. I think I'm going to list them online. But after that, we did a Halloween compilation, and I love all things Halloween. And we did this.
Who doesn't? Welcome to the club.
Oh yeah, we did this CD called Ghoul's Delight, the Monster Party record. And it was a double disc of all these Detroit bands that wrote and recorded songs for this project. it was awesome. You know, we sold a ton of these CDs. It was a lot of fun. And at that point, though, that was the turning point where I started getting bands saying, hey, you know, one of the bands we put on the CD was called Scarlet Oaks. And they came to us and they said, will you put out our CD? And then I loved the band. They were a cool Americana alt country type band. And we released the CD. It did really well. And then vinyl came along. Like this is just before there was like a real resurgence with vinyl. And but in Detroit, there's a lot of people that played in bands that they've been hip to it for years. And there have been people like me that never stopped loving vinyl and never stopped buying it. And they're like, you know, I asked a few people, where's a good place to make records? And there's still a pressing plant in Detroit called Archer Record Pressing.
I heard that. That's pretty awesome, man. Because there's not many pressing places, period. It's like, it is coming back, and you do see young people really tapping into vinyl. And I find that really cool. Like, actually, it's one of these things like that I always love to ask my guests, like, what kind of person are you? Are you embracing completely just the digital technology and the digital era, you know, all of the outlets, or are you a hardcore, believer and, you know, the actual copy that you just put into the CD player or turntable or whatever? I'm kind of torn between both, not only because I know, you know, the other side of the business, exactly how much artists and many of my friends are actually paid for, let's say, 400,000 hits on Spotify, and then they receive their bill, and that's like $1.89, and I go like, oh my fucking God, like, for real. So,
they're rich. That's a lot of money for 400,000.
That is a lot of money, right?
Yeah. I remember last year, all these bands were posting like, hey, thanks for all the downloads from Spotify. And they're like, you know, we had 32,000, you know, this or that. And I know bands that, like, popular bands that were like, yeah, that equated to, you know, somewhere around, you know, 10, you know, like $1,500.
Let's not go down that rabbit hole. We all, not all, because many of our viewers do not realize how actually the entertainment business and also the music business works. It is pretty harsh out there, but basically, you know, I have been always a supporter of, the actual real thing. You know, I think I actually got to know you, Scotty, and also Bellyache Records kind of like 2 or 3 years back. I think that's when I kind of discovered that. I don't know through who, either through Tommy Henriksen or Ryan Roxy, with having their albums obviously on as well. So, you know, I have been always with Rock Dance Theater a strong supporter, and each freaking post that I do, I always go, hey guys, support like the real music, because if you really get their actual album or whatever, you are contributing to actually sustaining their livelihood. And it's just like one of these combined things. So was that, Scotty, also in your case with your band, that you actually decided to put your own stuff on your own label and also go kind of down that road, knowing that, okay, of course, if I try to hook this up within any other like bigger label, it's going to be, you know, walking with a tan can, just pretty much begging for money, you know? It's just a long process, right?
We had everybody in, like, you know, we had guys like with having Tony in the band being, you know, an amazing audio engineer. He, like, you know, he in one of his former coworkers, Matt, recorded our Brass Knuckle Heartbreak record. We did an EP prior to that, which I don't like. I there's a reason why artists like sometimes don't want to hear their earlier stuff, because
there's always a reason. It's called feedback and constructive criticism.
Well, you know, and that's the thing. Everybody like will like say like Bob Seger, for instance, in Detroit, you know, massive legend, you know, huge. He did stuff in the 1960s that people, they hear it, they go, oh, it's really cool. Like, it was hip 60s rock, but he's not a fan of it. And people don't understand that, like, that's like his beginnings, and he's not a fan of like what he was doing then. And when he got popular in the 70s, that's more of like, that was his, what he wants, you know, wanted to be known for.
With that
and that's when he kind of really honed his songwriting. So he's never a big fan of reissuing his early stuff. I listened to the first Grand Nationals EP, and I don't want anyone to hear that thing either. I'm like, man, but we re-recorded most of those songs for Brass Knuckle Heartbreak. And that's where, like, you know, I hear the EP and it sounds slow. And, you know, that's because we were a band for like 2 months when we recorded it. We kind of jumped into it. But when we did that album definitely captures what the band really became at that time. It was, you know, high energy.
It's also a little bit of the beauty of it, right? To kind of, you know, embrace the early beginnings, because every one of us, like, you know, whatever it might be, you know, physical performance, you know, music, band, you name it. It's like we all had sucky beginnings, you know? And to be honest, like, I sometimes have that struggle too, kind of, oh my God, my very first piece, like 2000 or whatever. Like, I knew shit, it was horrible. But at the same time, I kind of think, it takes me back to where the inspiration came from, and where you finally decide, okay, it's kind of showtime. This is not a hobby anymore. You're determined to actually define that till the rest of your life. That's going to be your profession from now on, And you know what? Like, however much it might suck or not, I do look back with the sentiment to all of my work, and I love my project as my baby. So, you know what? I wouldn't have a problem with it if I made music, for example. Like, it would just be one of these things, like, okay, not necessarily buy the other record, like not necessarily this one.
Right. And that's the thing is with that record, with the second record, where the actual full length, that was where I was like, okay, this is really, to me, the band. And the way we were on stage prior to that, though, when we had that EP out, I was all for that because it was very raw energy, and it was just a lot of fun.
Exactly.
And
so
I just wish that EP would have.
Scotty, was that actually the quality of the mixing that you weren't like totally satisfied with, or the fact that you were so raw and so fresh? You didn't really, connect and click within the band just yet.
I just felt like the tempos of those songs didn't capture what the band was like live. It felt a little slow to me, and but that was just how we.
Everyone is like playing two notes and then looking, and the other is playing two more notes.
Exactly. Everything's a little bit. The tempo is very slow, and we perfected those songs well after that, after playing them live. And then by the time we put out the full length, it was like everything was just bam, 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 bam. Like it was where it needed to be. And so but I totally understand why bands like don't like to sometimes reissue that stuff. But but as fans, and I'm a music fan, I want to have everything also.
Yeah.
But I see both sides of it.
Too. Yeah.
But but at that point, like once we started like moving into more of the vinyl direction, I started pulling away from doing as many CDs, and vinyl was what was selling really well. I mean, I managed to sustain this label for this amount of years with we got 69 releases on the label. And
that's awesome.
And when I got around to the point where I was like, I felt like, I remember it was in 2013 when I had met Ryan Roxy back in 1996, and I always saw him at Alice Cooper shows because I knew Alice's former assistant before Kyler. There was Brian Nelson, and we were friends, and so I always managed to somehow end up backstage or on the bus or hanging out or whatever. But when Ryan came back to the band in 2012, I was super happy that he was back because he was my favorite guitar player in the band. He captured the essence of like the sort of like the 70s Alice Cooper. And I thought it was great. When I met him, he looked like David Cassidy. When I first met him. And then when he came back to the band, I approached him at a show in Ohio, and I was on a run of going to 3 shows in a row. And I said to him, I said, hey, I run this record label in Detroit. If you got a song or a couple songs laying around, maybe you'd like to do a 7-inch 45 with me. And that ended up just turning into the Amerispeed album.
Whole other collaboration.
It totally grew from there. And, then we did Imagine Your Reality. And then we did our cool, we did our summer kits. We did a number of merchandising things. I think we quickly both realized that we both love merchandising, and we were totally.
Who doesn't like cool gear? It's it's one of these things
stuff.
when you manage to put your own name or your own logo on some shit, be it T-shirt or a pin that is endlessly lying around my desk because I'm just too lazy to move it. That's cool, right?
Yeah, but I think he also appreciated like what I was doing with like the records. Like it's always been my belief that every record that like we release has to be top shelf. There's record labels that I swear they don't take the time or put the energy or the effort into making their product look good. I've had bands give me their record, say, oh, here's a copy of our record. I'm like, oh, sweet. I'll get it home, tear off the cellophane, and then I pull out and there's just like a white sleeve inside. And it's like, oh man, it's like you're on a label that doesn't sink any money to what you're doing.
That's exactly the thing. It's a whole experience. I mean, aside of the merch, like that's exactly what we love and what I always loved buying CDs and buying records. Like, going into the booklet, seeing the artwork, like reading the credits, reading the stories, like whatever that
I want to know everything.
Band put it in. It's as it should be. For me, it's so like obvious and normal, but I
want to know where they recorded it. I want to know who wrote what song. I want to know why this guy is thanked in the thanks list. It's like, oh, what's he got to do with these guys?
What's he got to do?
What's the deal? So I always tried to make it like in some of the earlier Bellyache records were I have to say we were a little bit basic, but it was a learning experience and to grow. And a growing experience. Like I know what I wanted in records, and I know that I would never sell somebody something I wouldn't buy. And I got to a point where I'm like, you know what, we need to kick this up a little bit. Like, let's,
That's very cool.
you know, so if we're going to if they don't have lyrics and they don't want to put pictures on the inside, I got to put a black sleeve inside that's lined with plastic to protect the record. I got to make it so people feel like they're getting a quality product, because I would be angry if I paid $20 for something.
Well, you know what? It's one of these small things that I always call just like a working ethic. Some people just have it naturally and some not. You know, they would freaking package anything and just sell it as long as you buy it.
The same thing with it goes the same with the sound of the records too. You know, I've been in positions where, like, you know, a lot of these labels, I'll buy new vinyl and then I'm listening to it and it's crackling and popping. And that's a result from... And
that's not a techno record either. That's
right,
not the
yeah, exactly. You get something that gets quiet and it's crackling and popping, and that's not just because of cheap vinyl or totally a bad pressing. Those things end up in the plates when they're stamped the records. So they have to make those right. So I've shipped stuff back and said, you know what? No, we got to recut this. You know, I've done it with you know, Ryan has even mentioned on his show, like we did with Imagine Your Reality. I heard the first cut of it and I was like, this is really noisy. I would be embarrassed, you know, and I'd feel bad for anyone that's playing it, you know, because it sounded like there was a lot of surface noise on the record. And
there was none on Ryan's album. By the way, shout out to Ryan, Roxy, if she's maybe tuning in, watching, whatever. It's one of these things, and it's really cool that I actually get to, well, almost personally congratulate you, because that was like 2 or 3 years back already, and it was also one of the very first records that I actually bought, ordered, and was so proud. Okay, I got the freaking CD, got the freaking vinyl, you know, with all of the colors and stuff. And
we put everything in the record. You know,
was a good effort. Was a super good effort.
Well, you know, I remember I told the story, you know, about how, you know, Ryan wanted, you know, to do 4 covers, and I was all about it. I was like, yeah, that'd be great. It's really expensive though, you know, because you have to make 4 different jackets. You have to order a quantity of all of them. And, you know, you always want to start at a modest level. So I had explained to him, I said, you know, why don't we do something where, you know, it's called Imagine Your Reality. Why don't we have 4 covers in one? And I remember we were having a meeting, a FaceTime, you know, meeting just like this, you know. And I said,
way before live streaming was a thing, right?
And I remember either drawing it out and cutting it out and saying, it's going to be like this. So for anyone that's, you know, interested, you know, this is what Imagine Your Reality is. And this is a die cut jacket. This is
Should I get my copy too?
yeah. And so what we
All right, hang on, keep talking.
So what we did here with this jacket was, this was a, you know, like I said, it's a die cut, and we put in 2 prints that were double-sided, so you could have each cover. You can put in the blue one, the white one, and then on the back of the blue was this one. And what we did, so everyone that got a copy, if they got one and they got it with the red, that meant the vinyl was red.
We are so plugging right now. Because we all love him. You know, he's an awesome guitar player. He's one of my first guitar teachers too. And well, he actually signed this one, Anna Banana Copacabana. And it's what's funny why I show that now, because when he was doing his podcast, In the Trenches, no, it wasn't In the Trenches. It was this Sunday live stream Sunday out of the Bahamas. Then it hit me, and I took a photo of it and sent it to Ryan. Fuck, that would be a great one to pull out in that moment. That would be so freaking fitting. So there you go. Now I plug that in my own show. There you go.
But, you know, with this record, you know, after we gave people all 4 covers in one, you know, so they couldn't say like, hey, I don't have a record player. We put in a CD, and it included a download code. So here you have a
which works on Bandcamp, by the way.
Yeah, it's Bandcamp. And, you know, so that way people got all covered, you know, got everything. And then on top of that,
cool.
You know, for all our friends and fans that were around the world, if Alice wasn't playing there and Ryan wasn't getting there, we wanted them to have something. So they all got a signed poster inside the record. And
yeah, I got that too. It's in the back.
Yeah. So you got
I got that too.
And then, but then we took it a step even further. I mean, of course you get, you know, like I said, each cover, like we did, you know, this is the red vinyl.
Yeah.
Everyone got a very beautiful shot by our really good friend Vic Chalfant. He did, you know,
there you go.
We used this. This eventually became the front cover for the purple edition that we.
Oi, purple edition, and Scotty dropped out. No, I did not kick you out.
Uh-oh.
Hopefully that's Wi-Fi that just kind of suspended you with name dropping.
It might
Okay, we're
happen
back.
again
We're good.
because I am on an iPhone, and for some reason I've never had a call come through while I was doing a live stream.
All right.
And now,
Well,
you
you
know,
never know. It might be Vic or Ryan calling you just now, like, don't forget to, or shut up on something else.
I put an app on my phone so that way it tells me when I'm getting spam or telemarketer calls, and it said telemarketer. So somebody was trying to sell me something I didn't want. But when we did the lyrics for the record, we wanted it to, you know, I said, I asked Ryan, why don't you write a little anecdote about every song, so people, like, they have something to read. So as they're reading the lyrics, they can read about, like, you know, why he, like, what the references to Big Rock Show, or why he decided to do a cover of God Put a Smile Upon Your Face from Coldplay, you know, or California Man. So, you know, we added all these things to give, you know, you want the fans to have everything,
full
you know,
experience.
You know, exactly. So, you know, you can sit and read where everything was recorded. You can, you know, read, you know, who all is, you know, is thanked. And, you know, then there's even a great picture of, you know, Ryan with Frank and Alice. So, you know, this record was like, this was definitely the most production I've put into an album. But now, like, I remember after the fact, we kept thinking about, well, what are we going to do to top that? So, you know, and so I'm still working on that.
Freaking keep it, right? But you know what? It's one of these things many bands or many labels could learn. You know, it's one of these things, because I always strive for complexity. I always strive for originality, be it, you know, promotion for my own stage shows, being concept, being elements within my Rock Dance Theater shows. And it's exactly one of these things when you put out a product, because it is, you know, it's something that people can actually purchase and then enjoy over and over at home, you know, reading the lyrics, seeing the artwork, stuff like that. I figure, you know, before you put something out there, it should have quality. It should have concept. And I think you guys really nailed it.
Thank you.
To be honest, it's awesome that I actually, because I'm proud of that, you know, and also it was super cool of Ryan to actually kind of agree on that, for me to actually debut one of his songs from the album, which was the Uh-Oh song that I actually debuted, like, on my Euro tour, on Satiric Tango tour in 2018. And that was way before, you know, it actually dropped and published, got published officially. So that was super cool, you know, to do that. And, you know, the people loved it, and they were asking about the record too. And I was like, well, you know what, like, head on over to Bellyache and just get it, you know, when it's out. So that was a super cool thing. And so I want to thank Ryan of straight off the bat. And, well, you're Scotty, kind of in the middle of things of the record too. You're literally, like, you know, 50-50, because it's your baby as well. Imagine your reality. So I congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
It's an awesome one.
every record that I've put out, I've been, you know, like, it doesn't matter how well, if something sold great or if it didn't sell great. If I was ever willing to stick my money into a record, I love it. You know, there's a reason. I won't ever put out anything that I don't like. And I don't put out records that are for, like, cash grab or anything like that. It's I always believe in everything. So I look at all 69 of these releases. You know,
it's a great filter to go through. But then again, it works only if you have good taste. If your tastes suck, oh man, that's a bunch of, you know, bad records just, like, heading out there into the world, you know.
Well, that's, like, I got lucky with a lot of these bands that if it was something, because a lot of them aren't like each other, you know. Like, I started doing records with, like, I love, like, there was a point a few years ago when people started, like, just rediscovering, like, 80s film soundtracks. A lot of those 80s film soundtracks were done on synthesizers. You know, it was like one guy creating all the music.
Electronica,
and they were trying to save the filmmakers trying to save money on, you know, not having to pay someone to, you know, compose and get an orchestra and all that shit. But so I started putting out records for my friend Slasher Dave. And Dave does horror synth music, and his stuff over the years has gotten bigger and better, where he's adding all kinds of elements, like beats and, you know, samples. But the first record we did with him was this record called Spook House that was, like, totally a tribute to John Carpenter and his film style, because he always scored a lot of his movies.
I love John Carpenter movies. Oh my god!
These records, we have
a whole different chapter. You know, horror movies and, like, horror period. We're going to do a part 2. Like, now we literally don't have time enough to, like, tap into that.
Right. And that's when, like, we have a picture of a couple of years ago from when John Carpenter came to Detroit, of Dave with John Carpenter, and he was giving John his records. And it was just so cool to see. But that was another record that when we made the album, I said, you know, we need to do something fun with this. And Dave had the idea, he goes, let's do a die cut mask for the inside. And I'm like, okay. I know people, so we can get stuff done.
Why
So we
not?
did the first pressing. The record's gone to a few pressings, but we put a mask inside that has like a mask string that people can wear. And I started seeing pictures online of people doing that. Then we repeated that again last year when we put out the new album from Voyager 3. Mm-hmm. And on this record,
Voyager 3, I also know from your catalog. And I love their covers, man. It's just it's so awesome. It's weird. It's grunge. It's just gore. It's all you would ever want from like the genre, right?
Totally, and that's because Slasher Dave, who does all of his own artwork as well as his own music, has done all the album cover art for Voyager 3 so far. So so when we put out Voyager 3's album War Mask last year, we wanted to do something fun again. So we put a mask in.
It's all about the fun. If it ain't fun, don't do it, right?
Yeah, we put this mask inside.
Cool. It's 3D, right?
Yeah, and this is a 3D print. So you look at it and you see the print in 3D and the credits in 3D.
Sweet.
So it's all about doing fun things like that and keeping it. So while you're sitting there listening to the record, you throw a record on, you're not going to go skipping from track to track. You're invested in that whole side. So you put it on, you drop the needle down the first song, you sit down and you start staring at the jacket. Or you try to go clean your house or do something. But for me, it's all about sitting there just looking at every detail of the artwork and seeing like what did they put in the art. So when you get a boring record or you get a record like smell the glove from Spinal Tap where it's just nothing but blackness. That's that's fun in itself.
Speaking of doing things yourself and being like a total creator, like as you said with the graphics for Voyager 3, I kind of lied to you because now literally when we were talking about it, I remember that, I actually did my own music for my very first show, which was called Lost. I was literally like a teenager then. I was like 12 or 13. No, 12. And I actually, like still on tape, I had a small tape recorder. I think it was Sony or something. I used to like scroll way to the back of the horror movies just for the music, for the scores and for the samplers and for the weird kind of noises. They're on repeat, they made you goosebumps and stuff like that. And I actually recorded that, caught all of the samples from that, cut it with scissors, with time, glued the freaking thing together and then put it in. And that was literally like 17 minutes of a sound score that I did by myself. And that was like way back before Rock Dance Theater. Yeah, I know, right? It was like the weirdest thing, but I was so freaking proud, and like now when I think about it, I was really doing that in detail because it was every couple of seconds, very trancy, so uncomfortable for the freaking ear. And well, that was exactly how the piece was supposed to be, because speaking about horrors, it was actually about a creature from the swamp. It was about a girl that died and fell into a river and like all rotted, and I was the zombie creature kind of thing. It was awesome, really. Like if I find a recording like ever, because I think someone recorded that back at, it was like a school show, whatever. It was terrible. And I remember the very last moment when just before I go on stage, my best friend at the time literally poured a bucket of water over me, and my outfit was pretty much just like ripped bandages. I was almost naked, but it was all just like crappy and screwed up. Like if we know Silent Hill, it was one of these kind of things, right? And like so that I'm completely like full on swamp monster or whatever. And then I think the show opened up when I was actually hanging over the stage podest, kind of upside down, and I literally looked dead. Like when the curtain went up, people were like, "Oh my fucking god!" It was so silent. That's all I can remember. So.
Well, I love a good show.
So much fun. It was so much fun. Yeah. So that was that beginning.
Yeah. Well,
do you remember your first? Sorry to interrupt. You remember your first show, Scotty, with your
band? Like, I do. I remember. It was in 2003. It was in like February of that time period, and we played. Yeah, we were playing at a place.
I'm not asking about the year. I know you suck at dates.
I remember the very first show. Slip. I remember that there was a it was one of these nights where we all knew people, so it was packed. It was jam packed, and once again setting the bar high.
You performed for your friends, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. And
that's the best and the worst environment, actually.
It sometimes, but like at the time, our singer had been a bartender for years, so he knew everybody there. Like everybody at the bar showed up, and then our guitar player and our drummer all had friends So I knew people from like the bands that they played with, and then I knew all these people from all the record store scenes and all that. So the place was jam packed. I still see pictures every now and then from it where it was like, wow, that was cool. And yeah, I still remember that, and I don't ever know how good we were, but I just remember being the first show, and people were really excited, and then it just continued on for years after that. So
Nice.
yeah, that was a lot of fun, and it's kind of funny that there was definitely a group of people that kept coming to see us for quite a while. And then I remember when we did that reunion show, there was a ton of people at it, but at the same time, I'm looking like, I don't think there's anyone that was at that very first show. There's no way. Like, it was so many years later, but it was great. It was so cool, and just to still be able to go into a room and pack it full of people. And it wasn't about like the ego or anything like that of like, oh, we're playing for, we got 300 people crammed in here tonight. It was more about just feeding off that energy of playing your music and seeing the reaction, people actually stand there and having a good time, because there are shows that I've been to where the crowds are notoriously just watching, doing nothing, just not.
That's the worst. When you have that kind of disconnect with anything, it's just like,
I think we're playing for an oil painting tonight. I don't know who those people are, but
you know what?
It's good to see people actually moving and just having a good time. And then early on, people knew the lyrics to our songs, and there wasn't even any CDs out yet, because we always made sure to write. One thing that I've always have done with songs I wrote was I always wanted a memorable chorus, drive it into people's heads so they don't forget it. Just keep repeating it, catchy, hooky chorus. And that's what the Grand Nationals always
that's
had.
what makes, classic songs and that are timeless pretty much. And we all listen to them, right? From the 60s up until now, if it's good, it's good. It's going to stay there. And that's exactly what it's supposed to do. Like, drill your brain until you puke,
Right.
I have my favorite ones, most definitely.
We had a song on that record called John the Baptist. And I don't know what the song's about. I'll be honest.
Who wrote it?
Tony and I would always come up with the music, or he'd have a riff or something, but Stevie always wrote all his lyrics. And I to this day, I still don't know what these songs are about. I just feel like,
you can always blame yourself and your friend.
And so I was like, I don't know what this song is about, but the chorus is "Bring Me the Head" of John the Baptist, good. And everybody seem to love that song because it's a very fist pumper, and people want to jump on the stage and be up there. People want to grab the microphone so they can scream, "Bring me the head of John the Baptist." And I'm sitting there like, okay, cool. Because actually by the point in the show, I've expelled the bulk of my energy, and not having to shout those lyrics is fine with me. But that song is like one of those tunes that people always come, or I'd run into people like, "Hey, you're playing the Grand Nationals, bring me the head," and they're always out there like yelling it, and it's like, yeah, man, that's cool.
And you go, okay, dude, I'll do my best, but like not today, maybe.
Right. It's like your turn, you can sing it tonight. Awesome. But there was always people that were trying to do that, and it was cool. Even at that last reunion show that we did, I still saw people out there doing it. Some people have aged, and it's like, don't have a stroke, just have a good time.
Nice. Well, that's always what we love, right? These high energy shows that people are just like driven in and everything. And like one thing that I actually wanted to mention with that is like, you know what, like doesn't matter the amount of audience. And of course, like we get a chance to play bigger gigs, smaller gigs, it all depends. Right. But to be honest, I way more prefer to perform to a crowd that is quite smaller and intimate, to be honest. But I just feel that they're completely in my story, they're really dragged in and connected, instead of like, exactly as you say, this kind of passive, okay, show me what you got. Right. But I got a great story. Like one time, it was one of the hottest shows of the season. I think it was like 2016 or 17 in Vienna. I was doing my tribute to rock and roll tour, and it was like 40 degrees, baking. And, I'm giving it Celsius. All in the show, I'm just dying literally, and I'm blowing my veins out. And there's a woman in first row, and that's an off theater, which has an audience leveled right at the stage level. Yeah. And there is this woman that literally sits, in front like that, but with her phone, and she's scrolling her vacation photos. And that's exactly the moment when I went like, what?
You're there.
Not only that, but I went, thank you, God. You're giving me the most awesome like possibility to actually interact and play off of it. So what I did was I actually went up to her. I took her phone. I flipped it to camera mode. I made a selfie with her, and I gave it back to her. And then I kind of figured, you know what? I'm not going to continue with the show. I'm going to improvise a little bit. And like every now and then, I open my mouth on stage, and I have this monologue moment that is part improvised, part site specific, whatever that might be. And that was my perfect moment to kind of unload on that thing, and that I was playing with the topic, like asking about her phone number and stuff like that, and then looking at the acoustic station, looking at the producer, like, guys, be sure to get her name, whatever. Da, da, da. So it was like the funniest thing. People were so cracking up. And hell, I figured, if you cannot manage an audience member as ignorant like that, when I'm giving it all, and well, she paid a ticket, obviously, to see my show, it was the funniest thing. I might as well have some fun. So that's what I did.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it never bothered me if someone had their camera out and they were trying to take pictures or film, what we were doing.
That's a whole other story.
There's
right?
times I wish I could see some of that stuff, But then there's times that we played really big shows and in big venues where, I remember one time, we opened up for Grand Funk Railroad at this venue called DTE Energy Theater, and Ryan knows that place. Alice Cooper's played there, quite a few times. And,
I know a lot. I've never been to Detroit yet. Hopefully, when all of this shit blows over, we are meeting up for coffee, to say the least.
So but playing there, you're playing for a packed venue like that. That's huge. That was one time too that I thought, will we connect with people? But there was people that were there that were excited to see us. I remember we had family, my mom and dad, and my brothers all came down from up north to see us play. And after the show, after riding that high of being on that stage, I've seen so many big acts play on, and almost in a Spinal Tap moment, not being able to figure out how to get from the backstage back out to the venue so we could go see people. Tried jumping off the stage, and we got in trouble for that. But it was just a surreal moment. Where,
it's called rock and roll. Come on, man.
Right,
you
exactly.
Be politically incorrect.
The most rock and roll thing happened at that show. After our performance, I was back up at the concourse of the venue and met up with our band and some of our friends and family that came down to see us. We're all congregating up there, and we as a band, it was the first time ever in my life we all got to sign this woman's breasts. And so I'm standing there in front of my mom with a Sharpie in hand, giving my signature, and she's just laughing. So that was hilarious. This woman's like, oh, sign it, and I'm
that's your rock star moment right there. You haven't lived a day if you haven't
have that
somebody's boobs.
Right. It's like, you're going to have our names tattooed. It's like, who are we, but
you never know.
But she loved us.
You got to follow that up.
Yeah, and I remember asking, it's like, you're missing Grand Funk Railroad right now. What's the deal? You're here with us, but she really, they really loved us. And,
well, maybe they enjoyed both. It's one of these things.
That's exactly.
Super cool, man.
That was really cool. But whether it was playing with playing with Grand Funk, or we played with the New York Dolls, or playing the Vans Warped Tour with Joan Jett and people like that. All those shows were always were fun to do. Or if we were playing in a club in Detroit. I've always loved just, being up there and just being able to get that, draw that energy from people that were having a good time. And it always blew my mind how many people knew the lyrics to the songs while they're singing along, seeing fists in the air, You know
what? It's one of these things, really, me not being a musician yet, I've been also writing my whole life. I write scripts for my shows. Lately, I started also writing my memoirs that no one is going to read because why would they? But I figured that with writing, it's really, if the lyrics are good and specifically composed, it's a catch. The brain focuses on that. There's a specific part of the cognitive brain that actually synchronizes with that. And it's funny that you say that, because to be honest, I had one of those audience member moments, to be honest. The very first time I actually saw John Corabi's live acoustic show. And he was singing everything, a little bit of Motley Crue, a little bit of Union stuff, Scream, his stuff. And I did not know some of the songs, yet it was the weirdest thing. I was singing along to it, and I could not freaking know the words.
Yeah.
Explain that. And I swear to God, I remember. Exactly. I remember that, and it was today. It was the funkiest thing. And then I said that to John. He was like, well, I guess a good song is a good song. And I was like, you know what, man? I think it's totally that. Well, and
I've had
good writing, bad writing. It's like with Miles Davis, good music, bad music. I don't think there's shades of gray much to it. So
I had that experience with, just about every early Beatles record. I don't have to own any Beatles records to somehow know all those songs in my head.
I don't
And-
have any. I gave everything away, even my parents' collections. I was
but when you get
terrible.
around to like Rubber Soul and the Revolver era, when they became, started to get a little more grittier and they got away from the early like rock and roll sound, like those are the records that, more people gravitate to. But the earlier records, somehow you can throw on like, a song like P.S. I Love You. And I don't know, I've probably heard it a number of times, but I somehow know all the lyrics to these songs. It's not like I listen to them religiously or anything like that. My bands were Alice Cooper, Iron Maiden, Cheap Trick, Kiss, and for older bands, like I wasn't like, I love the music of the Beatles, but it's everywhere. So I always gravitated towards other people like Elvis and the Monkees and the Turtles, like of that genre. And those were the bands I found, not to knock the Beatles at all, but I found them slightly more interesting because
the Beatles will always be the Beatles. Come on,
they're the prototype for everything.
They've earned the
influenced all the
respect.
bands I just mentioned too, to a degree. So, but those were, I remember somebody, comparing, like saying Led Zeppelin, the greatest band of all time. I'm like, great band, not my favorite band. I like their music a lot. I would never knock them. But I remember telling somebody like, well, why don't you think Zeppelin's the greatest? I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it's the lack of guillotine and snakes and black leather. That's what I want in my rock.
Maybe,
but again, I don't
it's
ever
funny,
like shit on anything people love because
someone actually posted a comment like, well, that was actually my question. Actually, like, are you a Beatles guy or are you a Kiss guy? Because I think like a lot of people are kind of defined and well, I don't want to say separated because music should be the integration part of life. It brings everyone together. We all have fun with it. We love it. But yeah, there's this funny division actually. Like for some people, Beatles are a different Beatles that requires paint, outfits and like pyrotechnics and just like being special out of the world characters, which is Kiss. So
yeah,
you're a Kiss guy, you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally prefer, like, I love Kiss.
When was the first time you saw Kiss, like, on tour?
I saw them on a tour without makeup, for sure. The silent tour. Yeah,
is that the moment where the magic kind of blew, like, oh, there's no Santa?
No, not at all. Not at all. I've loved 80s
For me, it wasn't that either. I was just like, hey, okay, cool.
Kiss.
That's how the dudes look like. They're handsome, and that's it.
I was young enough to know that like there was the Kiss of the 70s with makeup, but then the Kiss that when I started getting into them, we're definitely a band without the full face paint. They still wore a lot of makeup,
Yeah,
like,
of course.
My friends used to joke around. They're the only band to take off their makeup and still have a lot on, because they still wore a lot of like eyeliner.
You gotta. Well, have you tried to go on stage without any makeup, like for real, Scotty?
I don't wear makeup on stage. There was only a few times I ever really did.
When you are
I just pull my hat down so
and
there's
you're doing
here.
a very physical show, your face is literally melting. You start glowing, just like myself a little bit in the front light over here for my podcast studio. You really need that. Of course, it's the thickness of wallpaper paint, pretty much wallpaper glue. But it's one of these things like you cannot freaking do without. Otherwise, it's just you look like a rat taken out of water. Unless that's the look you're aiming for in the show, and that's the concept. You do need makeup.
I feel like I look rather odd when I would have any type of makeup on. In fact, I remember inside this Brass Knuckle Heartbreak CD, I remember we had to wear makeup for like the photo shoot, and I remember having on like. Having to wear a little guy liner, but knowing enough that it's like, well, look at my skin tone. It's like I'm very, very, very pale, and I have gingery hair. So I made sure that my eyeliner was more of a brown, so that way it wasn't so just like I didn't want to look like Scott Weiland or something like that when he would put on black eye makeup, but yet he had like flaming orange hair. Just to me, just didn't look right. They didn't look right on me.
Well, maybe that was the whole idea too, go take it a completely extreme, so that it actually works, you never know.
Well, some people they have a better face for it. I felt like I didn't. It's like that's why I like like wear a hat. I always like to when I was on stage I would just do what I do. So
Well, you know what? Like in terms of visual, and fashion, like as you mentioned, let's say that you need snakes and spandex or leather or braces, in the show. Like that's I can completely relate to that because that's exactly how I've been always.
Yeah.
The show was never complete for me if there was not specific fashion, styling, with weird kind of aesthetic that created all of it, and that's what I try to do always with my rock dance theater shows too, like having fashion designers or all kinds of aesthetics that bring another element to it,
Yeah.
Of course, in music, let's say, and in concerts, it's awesome even if you have a guy just sitting back, singing to a bass, singing to a guitar acoustically, and that's awesome, it's just pure, it's raw. But when it comes to a full show, that's why I love Alice Cooper as well, or Kiss is just a full freaking production, or Slipknot, it's one of these things where you have so many elements that are just banging on all of your senses, and
I want all of that. I want all of that, in shows. And after a while,
we're just greedy people, Scotty. Let's just call it that.
I want what I want, and I want it now.
Exactly. Well, I paid my ticket for it, right? The Italians would say. Oh Lord, let's not go down that rabbit hole because it only proves that, oh man, I do miss stage, and if not doing this, literally I will be probably bouncing off the walls. And we've had many conversations like over the last couple of months, actually, way before we thought of doing the stream, and it is what it is, and it will come back in one form or another. But speaking of contemporary stuff, I do want to come back a little bit to actually your band, and also the sound and the tone of you guys, which means gear and all of that creates. But like as a music expert, let's say, you're working with a label also. How I just called you an expert. What?
Thank you. Thank you.
Out of the two of us, you're the guy that is on the other side of the business. So judging from that scope, how do you think that the music industry will actually tweak and change and modify right now? Do you think that all of a sudden musicians and bands that have been in the business for a really long time right now, and even upcoming young artists being 3-5 years putting out their first album or two, do you think that the time is going to bring popping up their own labels just to be able to actually get their albums out and get out there into the world? Or how do you think that's going to go down? Or maybe all of them call Bellyache Records all of a sudden?
I think there's going to be a lot more DIY, do-it-yourself, self-released albums. People, with digital, you can now record songs and release them online within days. Slasher Dave has been doing amazing. Like he's been creating music on Instagram Live, and he really just released a new album called Cannibal Death Gods. It was a concept that he'd been telling me about for years. And what he's been doing with what he did with this particular album was, he wrote all the songs, had people chiming in on it, and then released it. And it sounds amazing, but it's just completely self-released digitally because we can't get anything out right now. With pressing plants, that we're running on limited capabilities, and just with the printers, not working for a while now. They're all getting back to work, but during the time of the quarantine, we weren't able to really start any projects. But I think you're going to see
everything pushed back, right?
You're going to see a lot more people that were home creating music during this time or working on their next record, and you're going to see a flood of digitally released records. And if there's any physical media, it might come down a little bit later. But I think that they're not going to wait around for the record label anymore because they want to make sure that they get their stuff out there. And now we're to a point too, and with live shows, Ryan was totally ahead of the curve with Sunday Livestream Sunday by doing his live stream performances. Those shows, he started doing that. That was 11 weeks ago when the first one came on, and that's you're going to see more.
I agree. That was
jumping onto
beginning, the very first. Shows actually that came up just literally as things were shutting down, because let's see, here Central Europe, let's say, they started shutting things down literally 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 10th of March, something like that. And Ryan came on immediately. I think Steel Panther was also starting to do something like that, and I think just now they're going to actually perform a live streaming show, all ticketed, multiple platforms, 7 or 8 cameras, post production, all of that stuff. So
if they can't have an audience in the room, as restrictions are lifted, you're going to see more artists that are going to be able to actually get back together on a sound stage or in a studio together. you know, whether they're distance or not or whatever, but they're going to be able to, you know, start filming like these live shows. But that's, you know, it's not going to come for free. I can tell you that.
Well, it shouldn't. Hello, because
No.
anyone that doesn't realize what being an actual live, you know, stage performer, as myself or you, Scotty, as well, knows that this is our livelihood. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, it's fun to give a little bit like that, but in that sense, kind of, you know, we're all workless currently, you know.
Yeah.
And however the world is slowly open up, you know, like I've been super excited the last couple of days actually, because I got a first workshop, like a masterclass kind of booked with me at the very beginning of July, and I was like, yes, you know, life is coming back slowly.
That's
but
good.
You know, at the same time, it's like, you know, it's not that it's going to pop up day by day and you get calls from organizers and venues that, hey, let's do this, because, you know, it's not going to work like that. I was lucky enough to actually teach a small like round of workshop at the very beginning before all of this like blew up in January and February, that kind of supplied a certain amount of, you know, money financially also there. But then I didn't have a tour actually planned. All of that is actually starting to happen for autumn and late summer. So I was kind of lucky. I did not have so many shows pushed back or canceled. I was supposed to actually debut one of Eric Dover's songs in one of like a rock for charity shows, which I was super excited for, because
was it like an Eric Dover solo song?
Actually Sextus Times, to be honest.
Oh, from Sextus. Okay, yeah. I've got those CDs.
Yeah, hello. And it's actually a lot of fun. I was looking forward to that. It's now pushed back to September. It's not canceled, so that's a good thing, because we're raising money for animals. And, you know, anyone that knows me, I'm a cat lover, you know, I'm a dog lover. My mom personally owns 5, so that's like 5 members of the, you know, extended family. And, you know, it's one of these things. Every now and then I do these charity shows that I think it's important to give back and to help others. And there's multiple platforms to do it, you know, with that. And it's super cool to also watch. However, these unprecedented times are weird, how many artists are also giving back, you know, with Rock Dance Theater shows to just kind of provide entertainment and cool talks and hopefully inspire people, with Ryan doing his podcast as well, you know, teaching guitar, the 12-step system, you know, all of that. It's just, you know, occupying people's minds so that they stick to the most positive things. Because hell, like us creatives, I think you would agree, Scotty, with me that we are, well, a little bit different people. We're sensitive, you know, we would be bouncing off the walls if we had no creative outlets. So
right.
I swear to God, man, like that's the first thing that I actually tapped into. What the hell do I do so that I keep myself creative, busy, and occupied, when all of a sudden, you know, my world kind of went like that. You know, you're not doing anything right now. So, and I think that's important to keep us grounded, to give back with these, and just to provide, well, art and music and stuff for others. I think that's super important.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I don't disagree with that one bit. You know, after you know, as soon as there was the threat of being home all the time, the first thing I thought about
call it. That's my biggest like enemy. Always like going off tour. That's a scary shit moment. You know, how long do I have to be at home before I go out there again?
Oh yeah, the possibilities suddenly became endless. It's like, oh well, do I clean the basement? Do I play bass? You know, but I will admit I got to listen to a lot more records, which I was very happy about. You know, records.
Oh my God, I live and breathe music the last times. I don't know what's on your playlist. Like the last time, let's say.
Right now, you know, for new music, I've been listening to the Licorice Quartet a lot. I love, you know,
that too.
All those guys from Jellyfish are great. I mean, that song Fadoodle, I listened to that song over and over because there's so many layers to it, and with the vocals, I think it's so good. And anyone that's a fan of the band Sparks, that was around the 70s, this reminds me of like a perfect like. A weird like Lost Spark song. It was so good. But that whole EP was really good, and I'm already looking forward to the next one. But I've been listening to that a lot, and I've been a big fan of Butch Walker for a long time, so I really like his new album. He's got this, you know, it's a great new like concept record and very timely too. But yeah, you know, but otherwise, like, I always go back and listen to stuff I haven't listened to in a while. Like after Ryan did his interview with with Michael Monroe, I went back and I was been listening to the One Man Gang vinyl a lot. I've been playing all the Hanoi Rocks LPs that I have. And, you know, it's been on constant rotation because that's stuff I just like, that's rock and roll that I love. And
it's endless, right?
Totally.
There's so many bands and artists that we all love. And it's like, who has a lifetime to go through all of the catalogs? I mean, man,
Right.
I have like a metal comeback right now. I'm listening to basically the big four over and over, which is, you know, Megadeth, Pantera, Anthrax, a little bit of Judas Priest, you know, stuff like that. And it's so amazing that I discover, oh my God, so many of these songs I knew like all of my life. They were playing somewhere. Like even when I was, I don't know, like 4, back in California, back in my childhood days, and I did not know who the fuck that was. How could I? You know, I was not like in the scene at all.
Right.
And now I go like, oh, that's them too. That's so rad. So I just love it.
I had been playing the Megadeth Rust in Peace record a lot again lately. It's been very like, that record is, you know, to me, it's like that's their most solid album. And the album art is so good. And look, and when that's another one on vinyl, it looks so cool. The artwork it takes me back to like when, like all the Iron Maiden records always had amazing jackets and the artwork was really cool for those.
Yeah. What's your favorite song of the? That's a terrible question. I can never answer those. But what's your favorite song of the album, The Rust in Peace?
You know, I still love, you know, it's a single, Hangar 18. I think it's still like my favorite song on that album. It's just because I love it. 'Cause it's about aliens.
Well,
I love
number one,
aliens.
the awesome topic, and number two, all of the freaking bass lines by David Ellefson is just
Good. He's so
good. Have you tried to learn those? I did. Actually,
there's been a few
that's
times
a lot of fun.
I've learned a few Megadeth songs before, and you know, it's, you know, and that's a style like that. If it's a little more of the jackhammering type stuff, that's more of like what I'm good at. It's the noodling and going all over the place. You know, as much as I love guys like Dennis Dunaway from Alice Cooper, my favorite
I just wanted to say, like, what are your hero bass players?
But like Steve Harris from Iron Maiden, hands down, you know, amazing. You know, you can't like, I love Geddy Lee. You know, Geddy Lee's playing is great. I got to meet him last summer when we had Geddy Lee at RockCITY Music Company doing a signing for his book.
Yeah, I think I saw that on the website.
Oh, that was so awesome because like every person that came through, he was fist bumping, you know. And then when they told me in the office, like, oh, you got to come meet Geddy, and they're like, you know, he was fist bumping everyone. But they said,
did not have to sanitize your hands. You could, you know, do the turtle thing.
No, you didn't. Everyone. But when Nick mentioned that I was a bass player, his fist bump turned into a handshake, and I shook his hand. I didn't want to let it go because I was praying.
You did not watch for a couple of days. Then
I was just hoping there'd be some sort of transference of bass talent going into my arm. I should just like clenched my fist and took it home and picked up my bass at that point just to see if there was anything. But you know, but he was such a gentleman. He was so nice. It was so cool to you know. But like he's, you know, as like bass players, you know, and then but very basic though. And where like a lot of the style that I used in the Grand Nationals was totally derivative of like the type of bass playing that like Dee Dee Ramone did. And you know, people don't always give like, you know, he may be playing some very simple stuff, but you know, those songs have such amazing choruses and melodies.
But the simple stuff is the most complex. Like actually,
there was one time I couldn't do a Grand Nationals show, and it was when a friend of ours was getting married, and they had kind of like I think it was like it wasn't their wedding, but it was like a pre-party, bridal party.
I just wanted to
say, and I couldn't play it because I was actually gone to a Cooper show, and I told the guys, hey, I'm going to see Alice, and this is down in Ohio. I'm not playing the show, so they got like 3 other guys to come in and sort of just like play the songs, and like, you know, each one learned maybe 1 or 2 of them. And I remember one of my friends that stood in for one of the songs was like, you know, you listen to the song and it sounds like it's going to be really easy. He goes, but your hand doesn't stop through the whole thing. I'm like, nope.
Exactly.
Nope.
Machine gun.
Nope. There's always bass going on, and it's always.
By the way, Scotty, are you a finger player or are you a pick player?
Oh, I'm totally a pick player. No, I totally play with the pick. And in order for me to play the songs that fast and just be locked in, I have to.
You know what? For the attack and for the articulation, like, and I'm talking out of a position of a 3-month-old bass player, literally, man. Because I'm a physical performer, so for me, physicality is everything that I can translate it through playing an instrument. And for me, it freaking makes so much sense. You know, when you have the attack, you can totally lock in more. I feel it more. Finger is kind of, I don't know. It feels disabled for me a little bit, which in Steve Harris, it's just like, oh my fucking God, he was playing fingers all his life, right? And you still have that, like Frank Bello in Anthrax.
Talons that are super long.
He plays, I mean, his chops are just out of this world, and he's a finger player, right? So, you know, for me to say that is probably rude, but I would totally go for the pick, and it just feels natural, you know.
I think because I came from playing guitar and I played from playing rhythm, I wasn't a finger picker then either. So I think when I'm playing bass, I kind of took it from like, well, you know, it's easier. It's that attack. Plus, I want to hear it. I like to put a little gain on my bass tone, so it's a little dirtier, and so it's not like a buried, like muted note. A lot of bass players might play, with a tone that's a little muted, and it might be a little funky, and just something that's a groove. But with in our band, it was like everything is going like a freight train all at once. So it's like, there's no room for that. Just
awesome. Well, I already like it. I haven't seen you live, guys, but I already like it.
We get to do it again
from the sound. Oh yeah, totally, man. Like I can open for you guys next time. Just please, as long as venues come back. Come on.
I know. I kept thinking about like, last year after we did that show, we're like, well, maybe we'll play again next summer. There's always a lot of cool festivals around here, and now it's like, oh, there's not going to be any festivals. So it's like, oh, I guess we won't be playing this summer.
Well, you know what? Don't even tell me. I was supposed to be at Wacken this year with a bunch of guys from Germany, which is called Cult of Chrome. That's a bunch of post-apocalyptic artists, actually, be it fashion designers, they do vehicles, they do weapons, they do music gear as well. Like one of the guys had literally constructed a bass out of metal and scrap and all the recycled stuff pretty much that you can find, and he actually did attach a torch thrower on top of that, like a Nikki Sixx kind of thing, but so much cooler, because it was aged and rusty and all, and it was super impressive to have in the show. So don't even tell me.
I've
2021 hopefully.
I always wondered if we would ever be able to have incorporate any type of theatrics into what we did, and it's a lot of work to pull things like that off, and I my hats off to people that do it.
And no.
But when you're like when you're the band, it's like, okay, you gotta make sure people are doing it around you. And the one time I remember we had somebody else on stage doing something with us. There's a guy from around town, and I believe his name was Light Show Bob. And what he would do is
that's an awesome name.
He had this thing, and basically he set up this huge lighting rig all around, and so he got on stage with you, and he played along with the band, but he's playing whatever this contraption he had to control the lights. So we're up there just like rocking it, like doing what we're doing. And I'm looking over there, and there's this guy who doesn't look like he belongs on stage with us. He literally looks like a roadie from like the 70s or 80s.
Oh, for real.
He's up there, and he's got this thing. It kind of looks like a keytar,
yeah. Oh my
God. It looked like he was playing a keytar, but it was this contraption, and he's just hitting buttons, and the lights are flashing. I'm like, this is pretty awesome, because it made us look even, because we played places that had decent lighting rigs, and sometimes would have smoke or something like that. But when he was on stage with us, it was like, this is cool.
But you know what? I gotta tell you, I've never heard of the idea. That's super cool. If you guys were the first ones to actually do that, that's pretty rad.
Well, he did that with other bands. Like he would show up sometimes, and like I think he would ask bands in advance. Hey, he told people who he was and what he did. And I know that other bands had done it with him. And we were playing at this it was kind of a strange venue for us to be playing. Like a bunch of our friends were doing this place. They were doing this show at a like an art facility where it was kind of like one of these like underground like art houses,
residency, whatever.
And they had a couple stages set up, and then we played it, and we're like, I felt like we were going to be too rock and roll for what was going on, because everything else was a little more indie and underground and very artistic. And trust me, when your band sounds like the Ramones meets Kiss meets AC/DC, we're not appealing to the art crowd. We're appealing to to rock and roll.
You know what? I can reassure you, actually, Scotty, because I pride myself with Rock Dance Theater to actually appear at festivals that are not nor dance nor theater, not music oriented. I specifically love to break that ground where I'm the only performer in the program completely out of the different world. I love that. That's exactly how you can cross invade other arts, because it's so freaking hermetic. You have all of those separations. I find that super cool when all of a sudden you actually shock a crowd, and I've done that multiple times just to kind of invade people's spaces, meaning starting a show in the middle of the audience, and then all of a sudden I'm next to them, I'm touching them, and people go like, what the fuck is going on? So they don't expect expect, you know, and
Right.
then the lights go on and then the main show starts. So I love that, you know, so you can be never enough for rock, you know, for any genre, like fuck it, you know,
Yeah.
just do it.
Oh God, if that was happening over here, everyone would have to sign a waiver coming in, you
I
know,
know, yeah,
knowing
it's a little
that
bit different.
there is the potential that you might get touched. You know, that's way like, you know, over
Touch,
here
sweat on, yeah.
we have a lot of haunted
Kissed,
house.
who knows?
There's a lot of haunted house attractions here in Michigan, and
Right.
Halloween is very popular here in the autumn because, you know, we have, you know, an awesome autumn season. Fall is beautiful here, and but there's a lot of haunted house attractions, and a lot of them now have, like, you know, you have to sign a disclaimer going in,
Yeah.
you know, saying that someone might touch you in the dark, you know. And well,
it's a huge thing in Europe. It's a huge thing in Europe as well when we have the waivers as well. Purely because people are really, well, touchy these days, and number two, they tend to be super sensitive. I don't know if that's a new generation thing, like really.
Yeah.
Me as a kid, if I wasn't like, and it doesn't matter, playground, show, whatever that might be, if I did not walk out bumped, scratched, you know, with stones in my eyes, whatever, I did not know I'm alive. Right now, everyone is so hermetic, right? It's just like, I need a waiver for everything. Otherwise, you get sued or whatever.
Right.
I guess in scare houses, people actually can die from a heart attack. So I guess, you know, for protective reasons, that might kind of make sense that, you know.
Slasher Dave and I went to a haunted house one year, and I remember when we stepped into this room, the walls got really close together, and there was like sand on the floor. So it was really weird, like, what's going on? And then it was pitch black, and we were just kind of feeling our way through. And I remember he goes, "Scotty, you still back there?" And at that point, I realized there was somebody behind me that was part of like the cast of this haunted house. It was going, "Scotty," right in my ear. But the voice didn't scare me. It was the fact I could smell their breath. And I'm like, oh, you know, okay, we gotta get the hell out of this thing, because I don't want this person breathing on me right now, you know, because I know if there was a ghost on me, I'm not going to feel breath.
Probably not.
No.
That's what they say. You do not smell ghosts.
Yeah, how could you?
You pick them up with other senses, but that one.
Right.
Oh, man. That's rad. Well, there's so much to look forward to still, right? But I think, you know what, Scotty? I think we should totally keep all of those, because like I would talk to you for hours. I swear to God. By
there's
now
so many stories.
But yeah, by now we pretty much figured out each other that like this is gonna freaking take a while. So you might as well prep some coffee for the show, right? I think we should leave the audience with a little bit, you know, of a doubt for hopefully next episodes to come, that we can, well, do a checklist for. Okay, we got horrors, we got the movies, we got show concepts and ideas. So So Scotty, if we were to slowly wrap this thing up, and as much as I would love to keep you over here because it's just fun, it's so much fucking fun. Yeah. What would be the parting words? In other words, what's up in Scotty Hagen's universe right now within the next week, month, or whatever? What's happening?
Well, right now, you know, it's like, as with RockCITY Music Company, we're trying to, you know, with restrictions being lifted in Michigan, we're slowly getting reopened, and we're allowed to let a few people in the store at a time to come shop again. So it's like, you know, we want to keep, you know, selling them, you know, guitars and equipment and records and all, you know, things to, you know, keep people playing and keep people interested and keep them entertained. So, you know, we're getting back into that with Bellyache Records. I've got a couple things that are in the pipeline right now that will hopefully come out later in the year. So we'll see what happens with all that. And then for what a lot of people that, you know, that know me on here from the label, but also know me with working with Ryan and the System 12 team, you know, we just finished our Kickstarter campaign, and that ended. It was a very successful campaign, and pretty soon here, you know, we'll start all the cool reward stuff that people, you know, signed up for will start rolling in, and I'm going to be the guy that's going to, you know, get it out to everybody. And, you know, and I'll approach it the same way I do.
So if you don't know, guys, that's the guy. That's the face. Like,
and people can always contact me if they need to. Like, when anyone that did sign up for the program, they can, you know, if they're, you know, waiting on an order or something like that, you know, I'll be taking the same approach that I take with the label. I always make sure that packaging is, you know, as things are packed so they don't get ruined. You know, I'm a stickler with a record label. So, you know, like, it's so easy for records to get ruined in transit. And I use mailers that are longer or wider, you would say, so that always the corners are always protected, and that way there's no way of destroying that thing unless a truck wants to run it over. So,
not that it should, but you got to take all precautions.
Take all the precautions, because there's nothing worse than when you spend your hard-earned money, on anything, by the time it gets ruined at your door. I've seen carriers, and I don't want to throw any of the the delivery people under the bus or anything, but I've literally had ordered collectible records for myself that would come from like Australia. It's coming around the world.
Yeah, they've flown a long way just to be busted in front of your door, right?
And I've had mail people. I remember I lived in an apartment building, and I remember I had this record come, and I heard this thud against the door, and he didn't walk up the steps. He stood down on the landing and tossed it up at my door like a frisbee. And I'm thinking, I just paid X amount of dollars for that thing. It comes halfway around the world and it gets ruined at my door. Like, come on, man. So, for shipping, my role with the Roxy Guitar Army and the System 12 Guitar Method team, it's like, I'm the fulfillment guy. I'm awesome. I'm that end of the business. But,
you're that end of the picture.
Right.
By the way, it literally just came to my mind right now. Are you thinking potentially like a System 11 or 13 on bass?
I'm not a good teacher. I'll flat out admit it.
All right.
I think maybe eventually we would have that sort of thing. That could be a possibility. I don't want to speak for the team.
I'm just saying, because bass is my latest.
It's
my latest fascination, and to be honest, right now as we speak, I'm kind of working on a concept for another Rock Dance Theater show, which is going to be purely bass centered. So whenever that's going to go out on stage, bass is in the circle of attention right now.
As a bass player, I'll tell you, I don't think it's a bad idea at all. It'd be cool if it is something, and we'll see what happens as we grow it. As we're moving into it, it could definitely, it could be a possibility. Bass is essential.
Absolutely.
There was always been like this sort of like guitar player versus bass player mentality. I think that some people have one, and it's like, well, they serve different functions. Yeah, of course, the guitar is like the featured instrument. That's but the bass also carries a lot of what's going on in the song, whether it is carrying the melody, or it's helping with the groove, or just filling out the back end of the song. Like, I've listened to plenty of mixes where we turn the bass off just to hear what it sound, to hear what it's like, but just to like to see how it's working in the levels. And when that bass drops out, the ass end of the song is hitting the floor. It's like, oh, suddenly it sounds kind of weak, and people will say like, oh, like
something is missing. Something most definitely as a ground is missing there. Yeah.
Definitely,
man, don't get me started, Scotty, even because we're never gonna wrap this up. Like, I can talk bass to you like forever right now, literally. Not only because I'm learning that shit. I'm tapping into, recordings and lessons and tutorials and seeing concerts from like back in the day, 70s, 80s, whatever, watching the hands and stuff. So for me, that's a whole freaking universe. I have nothing else to do because I cannot really be on stage, be teaching live, aside of a couple of classes online that I do also. It's just like bass is my universe right now. So.
I hear you. Yeah.
Unless we want actually our audience members to drop or just like go, oh God, no, a bass talk again. I'm out of here. No, but that's awesome, Scotty. We'll look like super forward to everything that is happening in your universe, and we're going to plug all of that. As you know, guys, Rock Dance Theater live streams always go to a post-production format. So hopefully we will get one. Well, we've nailed an hour and a half right now. So for me, it's going to be that much more editing work. But we will throw have fun with that. Good luck to you. Yeah, we will throw some cool visuals and a couple of covers, records, stuff like that, so that it's funked up properly. So we will throw just that out. Awesome. Scotty, to be continued. I'm going to let you go into the green room to have a small rest or a drink or whatever you might need. And I'm going to join you just in a little bit while I wrap this thing up. Well, so thank you so much. Been awesome having you. And
thanks for having me. And thank you for everybody that's out there that's been watching today.
Exactly. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. And thank you most definitely for Scotty for joining us here in Central Europe, straight over from Detroit. And as I say, guys, If you haven't subscribed yet, not only to Scotty Hagen, check out all of his social media links. That's Bellyache Records, and also his other business that we're going to plug all in the comments. All of the links are going to be hooked up there, so you can follow. And of course, click subscribe on the Rock Dance Theater live stream, not only because a couple of super cool, exciting guests, and I think I can let this one out because I did get an official confirmation for one of our next episodes, which is going to be a continuation of actually Base Best in the Books, which is going to be Marco Mendoza as well from Whitesnake and the Dead Daisies. So that's going to be one to look forward to, guys. So be sure to click subscribe and never miss another announcement from what I'm planning for you guys. And until further notice, guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. It's been a blast on, well, Happy Kids Day Monday, actually, 1st of June. So for all of you kids and everyone that is happening to keep and embrace their own kid within, I know I'm mentally 13 and I refuse to grow up. So thank you so much for tuning in. I have been Anna Achimowicz from Rock Dance Theater, signing off until later. Bye. And trams.